and welcome to the ADHD-Friendly podcast. I am Patty Blinderman, your host of ADHD-Friendly and the creator of ADHD-Friendly.com.
Yes.
Literally got a little distracted there. I was like, where am I? What am I saying? What's happening? I'm kidding. Here with my trusty assistant, Becca, who she's hearing a lot of the things we're going to be talking about for the first time. So I always like to do that when I can. So it's like a genuine reaction from her in the background, even though she's off camera, you guys get to hear she's reacting certain ways to things that I'm sharing. So welcome. And if you haven't already, I invite you to check out my website, ADHD-Friendly.com, for lots of resources and tools to support you to thrive with ADHD. This is episode 110.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And at the same time, I was like, was 100? Like, it just feels like it was like months ago. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, we just did 100 and now we're at 110.
It's crazy.
It's this weird like timeline in my brain that feels a little like warped because I'm like, it was short and it was a long time ago. All right. So this is an episode where I'm going to be talking about the annual conference on ADHD that's in Baltimore, Maryland, for my main topic. But as always, I'm going to start with a celebration and I'm going to share an ADHD-friendly tip. All right, let me start with my celebration. So the first is related to the conference, and Becca knows there has been a lot of challenges in terms of preparing for this year's conference. Yes. I'm doing a session as well as I'm an exhibitor. So I have secured a booth in the exhibit hall that I'm going to be there. If you're going to be at the conference, come by and say hi. I'll be there with all my ADHD-friendly tools and information. I'd love to chat with you. But what I realized was I needed a way to acknowledge not everything is something to celebrate. So I don't want to like minimize the challenges that get to the celebration, because that's life, right? That's we hit roadblocks, we hit things that knock us down. And I have really struggled in a lot of ways in preparing for this conference. And I knew when I signed up to do the booth, it was going to be a challenge. I knew when I was offered the virtual session, well, let's be honest, I was scheduled for the virtual session. I never signed up for the virtual session, but I had to decide, do I want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a challenge because it required me to record in advance and submit it long before the conference. And virtual sessions just aren't the best for me. So doing a session in that manner also is more difficult for me than to plan to stand in front of people and present live. But I decided, yes, you know what? It's important to share the content that I'm excited about sharing. So I'll do that. And then I'll also do the booth, which I knew was going to be a tall ask. I went in prepared for some challenges, but the tech challenges I've shared before, they are just a trigger for me. They absolutely shut me down, sent me into those, negative places this week, kind of hit the wall, if you will, of ADHD, where I was just slipping into negative self-talk, thinking, okay, well, if this doesn't pan out, I know, what's my plan B? Not a good plan B. It was not doing what I wanted to be doing. And so I literally was reminded of something that my dad did. My dad had a newspaper, and one of the things, and I swear my dad had ADHD, he was never diagnosed, but definitely the apple didn't fall far from the tree. But he had this idea that if people didn't like, because there were so many critics of his, as people will when you put out a community newspaper.
Yeah.
People won't like things, or they'll highlight a mistake you made, or you don't get a lot of like compliments, you get more complaints.
Yeah.
And so to weather that, I now think, looking back at that he probably came up with this to help himself navigate that in a lighter way and give people an outlet to complain. And it reminds me, for those of you who have listened to the Clark Howard podcast, if you haven't, he's one of my ADHD friendly favorite podcasts. Because he's so positive. But every Friday he does this session called Clark Stinks, where he lets people call in and tell him like what he got wrong. And I just love it because it always reminds me of my dad's approach. I don't know if that was like their generation and how they came at things, but it's so much friendlier. And I've shared this before when I talk about how to manage expectations and how to take feedback. and advice. And one of my tips is get it in the way that you can tolerate it. And I think for my dad, the way that he came up with was something he called thumbs up and thumbs down. And because he ran a paper, he would charge, it was only $1, but it was like $1 to place a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And it had to fit. And he had this box, it used to be by hand. This was before you could like submit things online. And you'd have to fill in like this grid, and you'd have to leave a space between words. Oh my God. And so you were limited, almost like if you think of like a Twitter post, you were limited to how many characters you could use. So it kept, you had to keep it small and confined, but it was only $1. And so people used to come in all the stinking time with their $1 and
I got something to say.
I got a thumbs up for you. I got a thumbs down for you. And I used to have to sit there and type them all.
Oh my God.
But it was just this thing that he did for fun. So I'm going to do my little take on that, which is inspired by my dad's thumbs up and thumbs down. I got thank you, Becca, for putting this together. I got the thumbs up paddle, thumbs down. So I'm going to try to use this more intentionally. But it really came to mind this week because there were so many things that I wanted to give myself a thumbs up for persevering through, but also a thumbs down for how I initially was triggered and stopped by some roadblocks in ways that I was kind of surprised. So my celebration is I now have a tool to utilize that. And I can even use it when I'm sharing some different tips and things that I come across. I just think it might be a fun little addition to the podcast. So that's
so cute.
That's a celebration. Making lemonade out of lemons, like taking something that was challenging and turning it into something I can use. And that's honestly why I always want to talk about capturing successes, because we can learn even from our failures and our challenges. And so I have a second celebration, if you will. Oh my gosh, the long end. It has taken a long time. So here we are at 396. Becca, we've crossed to the 400s. I don't even know how long this has taken because I've decided to be unattached and not invested. It's not about the number. It's about sharing, hopefully, information that's helpful and supporting people to take what works for them, leave the rest behind, and thrive a bit more with ADHD. So we hit 400. Oh my gosh, you guys, thank you so much. If you've subscribed, thank you. I so appreciate you taking that action. It's not a small action. I don't know if you've ever liked a podcast or a YouTube channel. Yeah. It's a couple of steps. And so thank you so much for taking the time. And in celebration, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm hoping I remember how to do this. I was reading the directions beforehand. All right. So I think all you're supposed to do, we're trying to practice because we haven't done this since the 2-year anniversary. Yeah. All right. Just got hit by a bunch of balls. That's what she said. No, sorry. Okay. Might have to edit that part out. Okay. Thank you so much for subscribing and pushing us over the 400. Streamer on me. That feels very festive. Okay. I'm all over the place. Yeah. Okay. See, they're fun. I need to be able to throw them up higher. Okay. On to the ADHD friendly tip for this week.
All right.
All right is right. Great as rain. All right. So the tip is, and this is from Clark, ironically, Clark Howard. I was listening to him recently, and he says there's one bill that he wants you to receive through the U.S. Postal Service, through the mail. Yeah. And it's your credit card statement. So I'm going to share a couple of quotes from Clark as to why. And again, he's not speaking to those of us with ADHD brain wiring specifically, but I'm filtering it through that lens. And this is so relevant for our brains. So he said, you will look at a paper copy of your credit card bill differently. You'll pay more attention to what you've spent. So I know, Clark, you got me at attention because that's so hard for our brains to focus in on things. So this is his quote. He said, with a paper bill, people will actually look, more likely than not, at their individual charges. When they get an e-bill, or you just look online, they only look at the balance and pay the minimum payment due. They don't actually look at the individual charges they have, because it's more difficult with an e-bill by far than it is with a paper bill. I 1000% agree. I can't look at it online. It's so fatiguing to my brain to try to process. And again, whenever I do this, I think my working memory, I can't hold. It's like as soon as I scroll up, I've lost whatever it is.
That was there. Yeah.
I have to have a physical. I can write on it. I can mark it up. I can flag it. I can circle it. I can make a note if I reached out and,
Yeah.
disputed something. I can put a little note on there, what date I did it, whatever. I can go back to the physical copy. Digitally, none of that happens. So I resist it and I won't look at it. And I have evidence. For years, I didn't look at them. I just did what Clark said. So I could have been charged. I don't even want to know what I could have been
Yeah.
mistakenly charged because nothing I can do about that. But he said, no, the banks did not. He was talking about how banks have overwhelmingly pushed for digital e-statements. They don't want you getting them in because it does cost. We're printing paper or it's costing them money to mail it. But he said that they're doing it more because your behavior, that they know we're not as likely to look at it and read all of the details. It's making it more likely that we'll carry a credit card balance.
Yeah.
And that's in their best interest because they make more money when you carry a balance. So he said, receiving a paper copy of your credit card bill is a great way to pay attention to and cut back on your monthly spending. This is especially important if you carry a balance on your credit card. So ironically, last night, Becca, I knew I was going to be talking about this in today's podcast. And so I came across an article from the Wall Street Journal. The headline is Citi to Cardholders, meaning Citibank. Go paperless or else.
Oh.
So this is, again, from the Wall Street Journal by Imani Moise, M-O-I-S-E. And she wrote, some Citigroup credit card customers are getting a stark warning from their bank. Go paperless or lose access to your online account. So apparently, a select number of people in the beta program for this that was rolled out to customers of Citibank who access their accounts online are getting a message that says, and this is a quote, we're requiring you to go paperless to maintain digital access to your account. So meaning if you don't go in immediately and shift from receiving a paper statement in the mail to receiving an e-statement, they're locking you out and you can't access your account information online. Like, I think of that almost as like holding your information hostage and strong arming you. So I want you to know that apparently they're getting even more serious than just kind of the annoying prompts that come up if you go online. And also to think about if you do get them as an e-statement, is that serving you? Would it be easier for you to get a paper statement or to create some structure to go online and print your statement? So it looks exactly the same. You can print it out. So if you don't want to have it arriving in the mail, you don't want to have to deal with that prompt. You can print it out yourself, but you're going to need structure because it's not going to arrive in the mailbox. And so it says, though this policy requires customers to enroll in paperless billing to continue using their account online, they can switch back to paper later and retain access to the bank's site and app. So that's what Citibank said when the Wall Street Journal reporter reached out to see if this was indeed true. So they said yes, and if you turned it off, you can go back into your settings afterwards and reinstate the paper option. But I just want to share for Clark, from his perspective, how important it is to stay on top of what you're doing with your money and what's being charged to make sure the charges are what they're supposed to be, that you're seeing what you have. And the easiest way to do that, especially with ADHD brain wiring, is to have a physical statement, whether you get it through the mail or you print it. So I just wanted to share that tip and invite you to explore what's the current system you're using for your statements, whatever that is. What's something that would move the needle to make it work just a little bit better than what is your current practice? So not expecting you to like create a whole system around, I'm going to do all these 10 different steps every time, but maybe you can tweak one little thing to make it work a little bit better for you and notice what's in it for you to do it. And then do you want to continue? All right. So that was our tip. On to this week's topic. But first, a commercial break. Hello, friends. I'm ADHD-Friendly Girl. Are you overwhelmed, unmotivated, run down? Do you stop before you start? The answer to your challenges can be found at ADHD-Friendly. ADHD-Friendly is where we make the doing easier. Join ADHD-Friendly today and start tilting the playing field in favor of your ADHD brain and start thriving. ADHD-Friendly.com, where intention meets action. Okay, we're back. And I am going to re-record the commercial, but not until after the conference. So maybe in the new year, we'll get a new sparkly commercial going. All right, conference is what I'm going to be talking about. This is the week of the conference. So if you are attending the International Conference on ADHD in Baltimore, Maryland in person, this session is for you. If you're not attending, but you do attend conferences, I really want to just share, these are tips for anytime you're going to be out of your environment in someplace new that you're expecting your brain to learn. It could be you're taking a class. It could be you're going to a different conference. It could be you're signed up to do something that's going to require you to put some structure around what your intentions are, what you're trying to learn, and what you're trying to take away from your investment. But for today, I'm going to specifically talk about how to work with ADHD brain wiring to support yourself in a conference environment. So I've got a few tips. And I mentioned Conference POM because this is our every 10th episode, I tie in something to do with a personal owner's manual.
Yes.
So it just felt like, oh my gosh, it's like perfectly lined up. This is the day, it's Wednesday, the day before the conference starts. The official conference begins tomorrow, Thursday, with the Professionals Institute. And then the general conference is Friday and Saturday. If you are here at the conference or on your way to the conference, I invite you to come visit me at my booth, ADHD Friendly, booth number 100. If everything goes as planned, that's the booth I reserved. I will be inside immediately to your left, the very front booth, because go big or go home. I did the scary thing and made myself be very visible. All right. So the first thing I invite you to do is to, before you even go, so if you're on your way and you haven't gotten there yet, or if you're probably not there yet because it's Wednesday morning. Think about, what do you want from the conference? What are your goals? What are your aims for this year's conference? What's your budget? Some things are kind of locked in stone. Maybe you've already like reserved your hotel or paid for a rental car or your flight or something. Those things are not necessarily changeable anymore, but you could think about, what do I want to spend while I'm at the conference? There'll be lots of sparkly things that you can spend money on outside of food and beverages and coffee and all the different things that you might need to spend some money on. But there'll also be in the exhibit hall a lot of sparkly things being shared that might be interesting to you. And I want to really encourage you, including when you visit me, to think about, is this really what you need? Is this ADHD friendly for you, literally, to sign up or to buy what it is? So if you have a budget in mind, if you're like, I'm going to go and I'm not going to spend more than $100 on non-essentials, meaning not food or whatever. I'm going to spend, no more than $200 for the entire time I'm there, including food, whatever it is. If you have a goal, it's so much easier to put some boundaries and hold structure around making those decisions, so that impulsivity is slowed down a little bit, because you're like, okay, wait a minute, I really want that, but what did I say I wanted to do? Or how much money did I say I had available to spend? So it just gives you a chance to hit that pause button, think about it before you jump in. Because what I don't want you to have is post-conference regret. I have purchased more programs, signed up for more things at conferences than I ever used or ever had time to use.
Right.
I think there was ever only one thing I ever actually put into place and used that I purchased at a conference. So I really, at least personally, know what I'm speaking of for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this for me too, because I'm going to be in there and
everything looks sparkly.
Everything is sparkly. I almost think of it like a casino environment, where there's not a lot of windows and clocks, so it's hard to tell what time it is. And it's like, oh, it's like, it's just designed in a way that it can be hard to hit the brakes. So I want to encourage you to think about, what are your goals, what's your budget, and then also what are your self-care strategies. Being at a conference is overwhelming, whether you're an extrovert, an introvert. It takes a lot of energy to be in this environment. So identifying those self-care strategies in advance can really help support you to take breaks and do what you need to do to recharge your batteries so that you're going to be at your best throughout the conference. All right. The tip that I have that I want to share for self-care, I'm holding this up. If you're listening to this, I invite you to check out the video on YouTube, my YouTube channel, ADHD-Friendly Podcast. So I have an example I'm holding up of self-care strategies, and I did them in just like little categories. So I have exercise self-care. I have sleep, where I plan to be in my room every night by 9 so I can be in bed by 10. I am not served well if I stay up late at a conference because it starts early, it goes all day. I need that sleep. I have alone time. I'm much more introverted. I love visiting with people and meeting new people,
Yeah.
but it wears me out. So I have to take little breaks to recharge. And then I identified, self-care is time with friends. So I do see people at the conference I don't see any other time. And prioritizing time to really connect and be with them is part of my self-care plan. So I invite you to think about that before the conference.
Cute. I love that little thing in your handout.
Thank you. All right, next, decide on the sessions that are most important to you. I got to tell you, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of sparkly things. Think about, again, what your priorities are. If you identify what you most want to learn, it'll help you to really prioritize which conference sessions align with that intention, and it makes deciding easier so you're not exerting as much effort. And then when you think about holding on to your decisions, you might take the literal, I have confirmed there's still going to be a conference book this year, which is just like a pretty hefty catalog.
Oh,
It's about, a third of an inch to a half an inch thick. It's a pretty decent heft to it. And I do love looking at the catalog, and I will circle sessions I want to go to. And if that's your go-to tool, I encourage you bring some flags so you can flag the session so you can easily kind of find the pages that have the sessions that you have identified. And you might even use a different color for different days to keep it easier to see, or maybe a different color for morning sessions or afternoon sessions or whatever's going to work for you. But that was my initial strategy when I first started going to conferences. I found I really resisted opening the book and flipping through. It's very fatiguing. And often the sessions for one time block, a breakout session, don't all fit on one page. So you might be have 3 options on the first side, then you've got to turn the page. And I always say, you turn the page and my brain is like a blank sheet of paper again. I don't remember what was on the other side. Now I'm just looking at these, but I forget what the other one was.
Yeah.
So I made my own conference tool to help deal with that. So I just want to share. I actually shared this at a conference a few years ago, back in 2019. I made a conference POM where I did a session and I handed these out and I shared it with people so that they could support their brains to remember what they decided. And I modeled it after the March Madness brackets. I'm not a sports fan, but I love this idea to help break things down. So I have more lines here to write down all the sessions you're interested in. This is broken down by morning sessions, early afternoon, late afternoon, and evening breakout sessions. There's a lot of sessions.
Yeah.
So you might write down the first kind of round of what you're thinking about. And then in the second round, you're narrowing it down. Okay, because you can only attend one. The reality is you've only got one. So you write down the top 2 or 3 at the most here, and then you narrow it down to your top choice. What's great about this is you can see your choices for the day. I then will go in and I'll write down what time those sessions are. So I don't have to juggle between different things. There's an app you can go in and use. I personally, again, because I'm scrolling through it doesn't work as well for me. I'm a concrete external visual tool person. I've shared that a number of times. And so this is what works for my brain. I invite you to explore what would work for you to hold on to the decisions more easily. My favorite thing about this is, let's say I go to my number 1 pick. Sorry,
Love it.
I know my sports references I really know nothing about, but I go to my number 1 pick and let's say it's crowded, or I know it's going to be crowded because it's a very popular speaker in a very small room. I have very little tolerance for crowds. It drains me enormously.
Yeah.
So there might be another session that I was also really interested in, but this one edged it out. But now it's no longer my top pick because of the conditions of the room itself.
Yeah.
Or maybe the room got moved to a different location and I don't feel like looking for it. I'm going to go back and I can easily see what was my second pick. What was my plan B? And now I can go to it. And I do go in once I get the conference book and I write down the rooms because it's not in the online portal right now. But once the conference goes live, or once you get there and you register and you get the little conference book, all of the room assignments are on there. So I'll go in and I'll write those down on my 1-page tool. I love a 1-pager. I can see it all in one glance and I'm on my way to enjoying the conference.
Stay organized.
Yep, that's it. That's me. You know, I like structure. And it's one of those things that I think gives the impression that I can look more together than I am sometimes. It's all smoke and mirrors, but it does help my brain to stay very calm and grounded because I'm not kind of, oh my gosh, and I won't go into a session late. I just won't. So if I can't kind of shift and be flexible in the moment, this allows me to be flexible.
Yeah.
I'll just skip that session and then I'm kind of down because it was one I really wanted to attend. It just is one of those things I won't walk in late.
Yeah, it'll help you not get overwhelmed.
Mhm.
Too many choices.
The other thing I recommend is if you're a planner person, especially if you're a physical planner, I love mapping out the entire conference, what I've decided on one page so I can kind of see where I am and what's coming up. And so I'm just holding up an example of this year's conference and the different times and sessions and what it looks like. And I made all of my open times. I put like little black borders around them. I mark meals so I remember to eat. I remember to mark off my plan to walk, my 23 and 23. Whatever works for you. This really helped me to think through what is it I'm trying to get done? What is it going to look like? And then I can always say experience it. I can look at it and go, oh my gosh, that's way too crammed. There's way too much stuff in here.
Yeah.
I maybe flag some things that I'm considering not attending if I'm more tired. I kind of already pre-decided if I'm low energy, give this one up, but don't sacrifice this one kind of thing. It just makes it easier to make sure, again, I'm leaving the conference with what I've identified as my priority to get while I'm there. All right. All right, guys. This is so important. It's what my session's about. It's what I'm always saying. And I know it's probably not what everybody walks around going, you know, that Patty Blinderman really knows what she's talking about. Those capturing successes hints that she gives, they're a game changer. They are.
They really are.
But it's not what we're like walking around going, all right, I'm going to start capturing my successes and my life is going to just tilt or in the right direction and get everything going. But it does little by little. It absolutely is a game changer. So my other tip is capture conference successes. 3 a day.
Yeah.
That's it. And so I have my little template here, just sharing an example where I pre-filled this out, which was really interesting practice too, because it gave me a chance to notice what might be difficult, like getting outside 23 minutes when I'm at a huge conference hotel in downtown Baltimore. I'm like, I'm going to have to scope that out and see how I'm going to get that done because I'm not going to break the chain. But I literally gave myself like days where I really didn't fill in very much because I was just too busy. Like everything is out of the routine that you're used to when you're away from home. So I tried to be realistic, but I identified like some strategies, like when I get there today, I put down toward the hotel for options for food and coffee, because that will help me in the morning to get up.
Yeah.
So that I'm very much a morning person on those conference days because I want to I don't have tolerance for lines. I kind of like know what drains me. And so I'm like, I'm going to get there. Like, what time do they open? I take a picture of their sign out front so I can pull it up on my phone. So I don't have to go look again or get frustrated that I forgot. I use my phone a lot for the pictures of things to remind myself. So I encourage you, think about what would work for you, because capturing successes keeps your brain focusing on those positives throughout the day. So if you get thrown off, you miss a session isn't what you were expecting, whatever it is, it gets your brain recalibrating, looking for, okay, what can we celebrate with this? What have I learned? What can I use? So it keeps you moving forward. Okay. And then the other thing that I would encourage is think about how you're going to take notes. This is my other example in my conference POM. I don't remember anything if I don't write it down. I'm going to be honest, I don't go back and reread my notes very often. But when there is something that I wanted to go back and reflect on, if I don't have an easy way to find it, I am never going to go back and look for it. And again, I tend to take handwritten notes because it just connects to my brain in a stronger way. So again, I created a little tool for the conference POM. And it's just, lines to write on where I capture the session date, the time, or not the time, the title and the presenter. And then I take my notes, and then at the bottom, I wrote down any actions that I want to take. Because sometimes it gives me an idea of something I want to turn into a tool, or I want to follow up with somebody that I talked to at the conference. So I might write down, their name and number. whatever it is, I like the structure to capture those details so I don't have to go back and read all of this to find actions.
Love it.
So it's just a structure I'm sharing in case it would help you when you think about what would you need to be able to capture what you want to remember during that session. So you're leaving in a way that you can go back to it and use it. Okay. And then last but not least, post-conference. So you've attended the conference, you've come and met me, we've chit-chatted, you had hopefully we have a really good connection. And come visit me. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes. I have a gift if you listen to this podcast and you come visit me and tell me that you listen to this podcast. So I guess I already said it, but yeah, come see me for your free gift if you come mention episode 110 where I talk about the conference and that you came to my booth to say hello. Hello. But after the conference, now you're safely home, which is always my main goal for a conference, to arrive, to attend and have a positive experience and to arrive home safely. Win, win, win. Celebrate your conference successes. Identify what worked, what would you do differently, whether it's for this same conference next year or any other time that you're traveling, what you noticed and you can use again to support your future self is so helpful to capture when it's really fresh in your brain. So maybe you want to reach out to some people. Maybe you decided we're doing some networking and you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to follow up and talk about this idea that we, kind of hit on. Put structure around that. So carve aside a little bit of time when you're back to just go through your notes and capture those things and put some dates in the calendar or take some action steps and then notice how did you do with your budget?
Yeah.
Right? Wherever it is, right? It was success, challenge, whatever you notice, what came up for you around what you intended and what did you notice happened in real life? And then what would you change to make it work better next time? That's how we continue to evolve and grow. And that's what I always want to focus on when I'm at a conference. All right. So if you are attending, if you are in Baltimore or traveling on your way to Baltimore and just listening to this while you're driving down the road or at the airport waiting to board, come visit me at my booth, ADHD Friendly. And if you mention you heard this, you will get a free gift. And I should say, until they run out. So if there's, an influx of people, until they run out. And then also, if you're here attending the conference in person, Friday night is the talent show. And let's just say I did sign up. So if I'm on the roster, if everything goes as planned, I'm a little nervous even, like, should I have even said that? I usually don't talk about it because I get I'm very nervous about performing in front of people, but I'm going to do it. So come to the talent show. And then finally, I am offering a conference discount for ADHD Friendly. So I invite you to check out my membership community, ADHD Friendly, at ADHD-Friendly.com. It's you don't need a special code. It's up on the website for the conference throughout until the end of the virtual conference, which is on December 6th. If you join during this time period, you lock in that discounted rate because, as we know, my ADHD Friendly approach to my membership community is I am guaranteeing a rate lock. You're locked in at that rate. It will not go up even if, and they will, the prices will go up in December back to the regular price. So the discount, $39 a month for inclusion in the membership community, the live events, the recorded courses, the tools, all of it's in there. Check out the information, sign up and lock in the discounted rate. I'm all about wanting as many people as possible to sign up. It lets me keep my price low. And that's really my intention, is to make sure it's accessible to anybody that would like to thrive with ADHD and resonates with the tools and supports that I offer to do that. So that's it for this episode 110. I hope to see you at the conference. And if not, I'll see you here in the next episode. Until then, tally ho.